think we decided what we were going to talk about is how the disease could be so different for every family. And on top of that is how did Mike and I stay home till the end of life? And that's a real challenge for everybody. And I think when people read my book and we say that we stayed at home until the end of life, that I'm kind of projecting that everybody should do that. And I just want to say that is certainly not the goal of the book. But I think it is out there to give you inspiration that maybe you can stay home longer than you think you can. I know when Mike was first diagnosed, my big fear was, how are we going to do this? And then Mike eventually got around to saying what his big fear was being taken into a care facility, that he wanted to stay home till the end of life. And I thought, oh, can we do that? I don't know. It was a big commitment. And finally, I did commit. It was one day we were out in the yard and he got grumpy over something, and I asked him about that. And he said, well, what he was worried about was me having him in a care facility and leaving me in our home. And that's when I made this promise or this deal that we could do this at home. And what I actually said is, I think we can do this at home as long as it's safe for you and it's safe for me. So that was the big commitment about that. And it turned out that it was safe for him and was safe for me. But I was always willing to change that if it did not become safe for me. Any other thoughts about that, Emma? Anything that you wondered about when you hear that we stayed at home till the end of life?
I think it's just so dependent on each person's circumstances. I think because of the community around here and family being so close, it was made a lot easier. Um, yeah, I think it's just so dependent, and never hold yourself to the standard of someone else's journey. As long as you're doing your best, there's nothing more you can do. And I think it's just important to be supportive and offer love and compassion to your family members, and that's the most important thing.
It's so true. And I think that's what strikes me is we've been in our community for quite a while. So our neighbors stepped forward, which was great. And of course, Emma's family was here. And then I had sisters who came from other parts of the country and spent a week with me here and there. We had old time California friends, which, who would ever think that when you left a community so many years before that they would be there for you? But interestingly enough, our kids had grown up together years ago. And so when they heard Mike was ill up here in the Seattle area, they said, oh, I'll come up for a week. Incredible to have some people who just came up, and they were real honest about it. Like Emma's grandmother was real honest about it. My sister, she said, I don't know anything about taking care of people with dementia, but I can cook and I can clean and I can help you with your garden. And that was just what I needed at that time. I also want to say that, some of our circumstances were a little different because I was younger than Mike by 8 years, which made it easier for me than if I was the same age as Mike. And Mike wasn't a big man. If he was a real big man, it would have been harder for me to manage him at home. And then our house was all on one floor, so that worked out. And then our resources, we owned our home, so our our financial resources were okay. I was able to bring in some caregivers late in the disease process. Early on, I used one of my daughter's friends, which meant it was less expensive. I'd say overall, it was far less expensive having Mike stay at home instead of in a care facility. But that wasn't the primary reason for doing it. It was more being together as a couple, and I think it helped Mike stay connected to me till the very end of life. I guess the biggest thing I just want to say is that the disease process is different for everybody. So Lewy body is one of them that is a very difficult form of dementia that has to do with people where they can become quite paranoid and quite fearful. And along with that, it can be risky for partners sometimes in that situation. There's other disease processes too that make it more difficult. Fortunately, Mike kept his personality pretty close to what he was before. And actually, his neurologist gave us a heads up that typically people do keep their same personality. However, that's different with the disease process. It may not be true for everybody. Okay, hopefully that gives you a little bit of inspiration. One more thing comes to mind. Whenever I thought I couldn't do it, and it did happen often where I thought, I don't know if I can do this or not, especially towards the end, because the physical maneuvering of Mike from the bed to a wheelchair to the living room, and eventually we had a lift in the home. But whenever I thought I couldn't do it, the answer was always that I needed more help. That was the answer. I'm getting worn down, I'm getting short-tempered, I just need a little break. So if you think you can't do it, it may not necessarily be that the person you're caring for needs to go to a care facility. It may be that you just need a little bigger break. And a real break is if you get to spend a whole night away. Ah, what a luxury that was. I actually continued to teach some of my childbirth classes, and some of them were getaway weekends, so I could go away and stay somewhere with them at a B&B for a night. And actually it was 2 nights in a row. What a luxury. And kind of figuring out how my kids would be here part of the time, caregivers would be here part of the time, and that made a huge difference to me. So give yourself a break if you think you can't do it anymore.